Good evening, friends and family of Grace Lutheran Church. Our hymn of the day for this week is called I'm But a Stranger Here. It's number 748 in the Lutheran Service Book. And if you look at the top of the page in the book, you see that it is found in the Hope and Comfort section of our hymnal. And even in just reading you the title of this hymn, I'm But a Stranger Here, you probably already get kind of this feeling of comfort and hope because you know what comes next. I'm but a stranger here. Heaven is my home. The first verse goes on to say that earth is a desert drear, heaven is my home. Danger and sorrow stand round me on every hand. Heaven is my fatherland, heaven is my home. And these words come from personal experience of the person who is writing them. I'm sure that all of us have felt at times the echoes of these words in our own lives. Earth is a desert drear, and danger and sorrow do stand around us on every hand. But these words have special meaning for the author who wrote them. Thomas Taylor was born, that's the author at the bottom of the page, that's why I looked down. Thomas Taylor was born in 1807 in Bradford, England. And he lived a good life. He had a good childhood, a good education, was able to apprentice with a couple of different businesses between the ages of 15 and 18. And then at 18 years old, felt this call to go into the ministry. And so he started college to be a pastor. And after 4 years of schooling at the age of 23, he took his first call as a pastor in Sheffield. And I found a very interesting newspaper clipping that someone had scanned online, and I'll link it in the description below. But it was a newspaper clipping from the Sheffield Independent from the year that Taylor died. And in it, the reporter is writing about these wonderful recollections from people in the congregation that Taylor served of his wonderful job as a pastor and the great care that he showed for his parishioners over his own needs, including skipping out on events that he wanted to go to minister to a sick member on her deathbed. And I have a feeling that it's these sorts of self-sacrificing visits to the sick that are what ended up being his downfall. You see, Taylor only served as a pastor in Sheffield for 6 months. And in those 6 months, he made a great impact, but he also contracted tuberculosis. The complications from his disease became so severe at the end of 6 months that he had to resign his post. And he would be unable to really hold another position of any sort for the rest of his life, which was only 5 more years. Taylor died at the age of 28 from complications from his tuberculosis. And in those 5 years, he had periods of good health and periods of worse health, but he really suffered from this illness for that whole time. When Sheffield is writing about earth being a desert drear and sorrow standing around him on every hand, he's saying these things from personal experience. And yet, that's not the end of the story. He doesn't write a hymn about how horrible this world is. He writes a hymn about how wonderful the world beyond is going to be. He knows that his afflictions here are short. And how especially true is that for him as he dies at the age of 28. But he knows that these afflictions are momentary and they're preparing him for something greater that's to come. This hymn reminds me of words from Paul from 1 Corinthians, and they're on my screen, so I'm going to read them for you right now. Paul writes, "So we do not lose heart. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light, momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal." We would probably not consider the sufferings of Paul to be light and momentary. And we definitely would not consider 5 years of the effects of tuberculosis on a young man to be light and momentary afflictions. But the reality is that through the eyes of faith, that's exactly what they are. These are troubles that we go through now for a short time that lead to a life with no more sorrow and no more tears for eternity. I want to close out talking about this hymn by just reading these last two verses to you and think about what Taylor is suffering from in his short life, and how even in his afflictions, these are the words that he desires to share with everybody before he leaves. This is the last two verses of our hymn. What though the tempest rage, heaven is my home. Short is my pilgrimage, heaven is my home. And time's wild wintry blast soon shall be overpast. I shall reach home at last. Heaven is my home. Therefore I murmur not. Heaven is my home. Whatever my earthly lot, heaven is my home. And I shall surely stand there at my Lord's right hand. Heaven is my fatherland. Heaven is my home. I realized that I ended that reading like there was something else I had to say. There's not. If you're local, I hope to see you in church this Sunday so we can sing that hymn together. And if you're not, go ahead and check out the links in the description to learn a little bit more and hear the hymn. Thanks for watching.